So after the Royal Rumble, Triple H, he went out and did his little post-show yapping and yapping, and the Saudi Arabians, they did not mess with Triple H. Check this out.
I'll tell you what, besides Liverpool.
Boo! Oh my god, even in Saudi, Triple Fraud is getting heat, man. As much as he tried to make the money moves, as much as he tried to give them what they wanted, you know, the money moves with Roman Reigns, the money moves with all these people, it still wasn't enough. They see through your trash ass. They see through it all.
Hiya, good to see you.
Yeah, tough crowd. Good to see you. Wow, don't fire me, Paul. Get your ass out of here.
You have the best entrance music. I love.
Glazing, bro. Just glazing. Jackie, just stop. Stop, Jackie. Stop. He's not even looking at you. He's not even looking your direction. Get out.
I think this might be one of my favorite.
Y2J. Everybody chanting Y2J. Triple H, man. This guy doesn't listen to the fans. You know, in his brain, he thought he would get away from you guys. You know, he thought he would get away from the fucking criticism by going to Saudi Arabia. He thought these fans are just here to see some cheap pop money bookings with Roman Reigns and fucking Sami Zayn, when in reality, they're exactly like us. Right? They want Y2J. They want this cinema baby. Come on, Triple H. Lock in, man.
Passing of the torch moment for a lot of talent coming.
How the hell is that a passing of the torch? Okay, Liv Morgan, yeah, I understand. She can get her flowers. You know, she came second place 2 years in a row. Right? It's about time for her to win. With Roman Reigns, that is not a passing of the torch, you dunce. Okay? Oh my god. Everybody's just like glazing Triple H, okay? Big E glazing Peter Rosenberg glazing Jackie, of course. She's trying to keep her job. Oh my god. You know, especially in these worrying times where TKO just fires people on the spot, you know? Come on, right? This is ridiculous.
Coming in the door. Obafemi, Javon.
Javon? Who the hell is Javon? Oh my god, this
That
guy.
a new era is upon us, and the future is bright. So,
Right, the Saudi Arabians are ruthless, man. They're giving it to Triple Fraud, man. Even in Saudi Arabia, they're hating on him, man. This is insane.
yeah, man, it's hard for me to say. I would say if there's
Oh my god, you fucked up. How many chants do these guys have, man?
dominant one person I had to pick, if there's
let me think of something that can try to alleviate the crowd. Oba. I love Oba.
Get your ass out of here. You don't love Oba, right? You don't love Trick. Okay, the only reason you're pushing these, brothers is because you got backlash, idiot. All right? Why? Because he's a closeted, right? Closeted. He's closeted, man. All right? Don't mind my handwriting. Okay, I know yours doesn't look too much better, right? Anyways.
somebody that I would, one person I had to pick, I think it would be Oba at this point, only because it was so dominant.
This is my
in
Uncle
the moment.
Jacob
Yeah,
Stromberg's
so
diary.
dominant.
When I was a
so
young boy,
dominant
he used to show
that
me the
Brock
sketches and
Lesnar
drawings
just
it held.
eliminated his ass with
They were there
ease
to
from
remind
the back.
him of the exciting
Right? Come on.
times he had in
Trick,
his life
well, you
as
know,
an aspiring trader in the
Electrifies the
Hanseatic
crowd
League.
like very few can.
It all
Hold
began
on,
in the
hold on,
year
hold on.
1361
You guys see that?
in
Look
Lubeck.
at Paul Rosenberg, man.
As a
Just
simple
look
trader,
at the way
he
Paul
began to learn
Rosenberg
the
reacts
basics of
and
trading,
looks at Big E,
such as
like
how
he's
the
just trying
price
to
of a
get brother.
commodity is based upon market demand. He soon began to buy his goods where they were most abundant and deliver to remote towns the goods they requested. Yet he also risked the dangers of long sea voyages to do so, and so his trading fleet grew from month to month. It was not long until the demand for his products was greater than the quantity of goods he was able to buy. His ships had to travel further and further. And so he began to build his own production facilities in Lubeck and in other cities, which, thanks to the new jobs, the good product range, and sufficient living space, soon became larger and larger. Now he has bequeathed me a part of his fortune. His experience will help me to one day be amongst not only the largest and most influential, but also the most popular merchants of the Hanseatic League, just like him.
Welcome to Lübeck. I am certain you will quickly get settled down in your new town. As your uncle, I will take it upon myself to give you a few tips from time to time. For there is much an aspiring trader such as yourself has to learn in this day and age. The town's most important buildings can all be found near the marketplace. Click on them to perform different actions there. That is also where you will find your counting house. You will also find your convoy anchored in the port. I will contact you later after you have sold your first goods in another city.
Approved. You know what I mean? This is approved right here, baby. He's trying to look at Big E. He's like, yeah, you hear that, Big E? You hear that? You hear that? Oba, he's pushing Oba. He's pushing Trick.
So,
Watch, I swear to God, if his next word is so.
So, you know,
so,
God, I can't even do the voice anymore.
so.
it's people in the business. I thought she had an incredible.
What are they cheering? Thank you, Hunter? You know, one thing that kind of pissed me off here is that the Saudi Arabians, they were booing the hell out of Lash Legend for some reason. You know, Lash Legend put on a hell of a performance, and she deserves her flowers, okay? The dominance was there, the heat was there, and honestly, they should have let her ass win, you know? From that heat, you could have made a mega heel, man.
Build a website you
Get
love
your... my...
with Wix.
Wix. Get your ass out.
your
I don't need to
words,
build no website, triple fraud.
Create
About AJ Styles. You look at his career, his influence on this business will be Shawn Michaels-esque.
Yeah, Shawn Michaels-esque, right? How about let's get Gunther powerbombing Shawn Michaels through a flaming table? Would you let that happen, Triple H? Would you let your best friend, would you let Shawn Michaels, right? What, 2001, right? The 90s. Would you let that Shawn Michaels fucking get pinned by Gunther? If your answer is no, then you don't respect AJ Styles, okay? If you're saying AJ Styles has this impact, right? He's this guy that's like a Shawn Michaels.
He's the Shawn Michaels-esque character.
Get your ass out of here.
Good. Your keenly aware.
We want Vince chance. Oh my god. These Saudi people. These guys are honestly the most ballsy fans. How many chants, guys? It's been like 10 minutes and these guys won't stop. Right? Y2J, Y2J, we want Vince. You know, fuck you, Triple H. I take everything back. I respect you guys. I respect you guys as wrestling fans. All right? I sound like Cody Rhodes. I respect you. Anyways.
And you're keenly aware of it from a standpoint of, hey, let's get him here and see what we can do.
The thing is with Triple H, you know, he's doing a good job at being stoic about it, not reacting, you know, playing deaf. But this is what hurts your product, right? This is going to decline the stocks of TKO, all the stakeholders, all the people you're trying to appease, right? All the executives, right? All the people who look like this. Shit, that's actually kind of good. See, some people that, you know what I mean? People who look like that. If he's trying to impress people like this just for the sake of keeping his job and staying in power, right? For this right here, Guala Moolah, baby. It's honestly just pathetic, man, all right? He's just appeasing to him, right? This guy right here, right? I'm not even going to give him a name. You guys can think of, you know, what that is, right? Who that looks like, you know? But he's just appeasing to him and the fans, the poor fans that pay thousands and thousands of dollars in the background, just getting shut out. Okay, this is like the perfect fucking picture right here. Okay, Triple H just looking ahead, deaf, ignoring the fans behind him who actually, you know, engaged with the product, who actually care about the product, who've loved this product. You know, I've seen so many stories, right, in my comments talking about how, you know, in Saudi Arabia, right, some of my fans, some of you guys might be from Saudi Arabia, you know, you had to go to the DVD store just to watch Monday Night fucking Raw, right, just to watch Friday Night SmackDown, right, and you do that over the course of, like, years, DVDs from all the years you've watched wrestling, man. That's how dedicated the Saudi fans are, right? The Saudi fans are real wrestling fans. And Triple H, he just dismisses them as literally just a money grab. That's just what it is, okay? And it's so sickening because, again, these guys are dedicated fans. Triple fraud, again. Just letting money just corrupt your brain, man. What the hell happened to him? Wasn't he the guy who pitched cinema, right? The cinema era? That was his thing, right? No, it wasn't actually.
As you
fucking
move through the
Vince.
ages and become more
It
acquainted
was Vince
with your
McMahon the
new
whole
role
time.
as El
The
President. These humble
humiliation
beginnings you must
of fucking just, you know, being a
go together.
backstage
And that
guy
means
while
doing
Gunther's just
anything
is
and
still
everything
wrestling. Like, what
necessary
the hell
to
are you
stay in
thinking,
office.
dude?
Whether it's rigging
All right?
the next election,
That's not going to sit well with
even
the
if
fans,
you don't
man.
know,
That's
to be
going to give you
accepted
even more
or
heat,
ignored
you
as
idiot.
forever.
You know, the thing with Triple
Virtually
H
every
is
choice
he's the
Tropico
best
5
heel of
sense
all
of humor
time,
that
right? Like,
baits the hook.
unintentionally, he's
Fitting
the
for
best heel
Tropico
of all
5,
time if he
since the
keeps
game
this
isn't
shit up.
concerned with
You know,
breaking down every little
you know,
bit of
if
minutia
he wants
for the
fans to
player.
like him,
It gives you
and
just
wants
enough
fans to admire him and admire his work, right? As the booker, he needs to fucking step away from the backstage area, step away from the Goonrilla room, okay? Stop it, right? Stop it with your stupid lotion, right? You don't need this, okay? Get that out of here. He needs to walk up to the ring and fucking be a man, cut a promo and say to everybody that, you know, this is best for business, right? He just leans into that shit, you know, oh, fuck, this is kind of a good ring. God damn, all right, shoot. You know what I mean? Triple H needs to lean into this kayfabe of being the heel, you know, authoritative power. This is exactly what he needs to do to earn my respect back, because Vince McMahon did that, you know, and what happened, right? It turned out to be very fucking cinematic. It turned out to be very entertaining. With Triple H, you know, come on, man. You know, I know that you're not in shape. I know that you're not in the gym like Vince, but he needs to see this through and pitch it to TKO because, again, this is what we need. We need realism back in wrestling, not some fake ass shit with, you know, Gunther saying that he retired and tapped out John Cena like a little bitch, right? That's trash, right? That's like middle school type of fucking storyline. That's a middle school type of storyline. You know what I mean? Like, this needs to... The only reason why The Rock Like, the only reason why The Rock coming back worked, right? The whole final boss ordeal with Cody and the Sell Your Soul ordeal worked is because it felt real, right? It was like, it had an ominous presence to it where it's like, what does he mean by sell your soul? Especially with like all the Diddy stuff coming out, you know, we could connect the dots and be like, oh shoot, this is some dark ass shit that feels, you know, very present, right? Very, what was that word? Is it contemporary? Relevant within this time, all right? I'll just say that. Triple H needs to lean into that shit, right? It's not about social media. It's not about working with speed or all these streamers who don't really care about the product. It's about leaning into the realism, the real emotions, the real reactions of the crowd, man.
What Shawn Michaels is doing in NXT, I think that's a path in a career for AJ Styles.
Yeah, in NXT. Why not take your spot, Triple Fraud? Right? Why can't he tango with you in the writer's room with all those other bumps? Right? Maven 2.0. Fucking that other guy, Josh. Right? Come on. Right? Why can't he be in that writer's room? Why can't any of these guys be in the writer's room? We have only Road Dogg and Bobby Roode, who are former wrestlers in there. Right? Bruce Pritchard, get your ass out of here. Okay, Bruce Pritchard, stop. Right? You're out of fucking tune. You're out of touch. And you're ruining the business, dude. All right? They need to have people like AJ Styles in a second seat, a fucking co-writer of the goddamn product. All right? We need real wrestlers in there, dude. Right? AJ Styles, fuck it. Even Seth Rollins, right? Abyss, for example, had a lot of great ideas during WWE Unreal, but guess what Triple Fraud did? Right? He just stuffed him as a match producer. Right? He just stuffed him in the Goonrilla room as a match producer, dude. All right? Trash.
Tribal chief as he does things on his time and his terms.
Yeah, and that's exactly what's ruining the business as well, dude. Like, you're letting these guys be part-timing, lazy, opportunists who just step in and win shit, dude. The fact that Roman Reigns won the Royal Rumble just out of the blue, like, come on, bro. You know, you could have had Gunther win it. I would have been happy with Gunther because it's like, oh yeah, there's an angle there of storytelling. With Roman Reigns, there's nothing. You know, there's a 4 or 5 month storytelling fucking time period. You know, it's just some cheap ass clutch ass Hail Mary. You know what I mean? Like, think about it. They're just bringing back the biggest draw in wrestling just to lead up to WrestleMania. Like, yeah, he was gone. You know, he disappeared. What about that, Triple H? Why can't you address that? Why can't, any of these fucking feuds from before main event WrestleMania? Right? Why? Because you're trash at booking them. Right? You don't know how to use your creative brain. Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes had a lot of potential, man. Jey Uso, Jimmy Uso, Braun Breaker versus CM Punk. You know, these are main event matches that should have the right amount of creative writing behind it to carry all the way to WrestleMania. Not some cheap pop ass shit on some Saturday night's main event. I don't want to hear that shit. You know what I mean? Like, think about it. How many times have we seen Randy Orton and John Cena face each other? Right? How many times? There's fucking a shitload of times, right? But the storylines, they were always fresh. They always felt, cinematic in some sense. There was a reason why they're feuding. With Triple H, he's just Hail Marying this shit, dude. Right? This is Hail Mary Triple H at this point. This guy is this guy's fucking Tom Brady and shit. What do you think he is? Right? Fucking just throwing Hail Marys. Hey, Roman.
Hey, so, Roman, Roman, I need you. The ratings, they're going down. The TKO, they're gonna fire my ass.
You know what I mean? This guy's panicking, man. Panic booking, dude. He's just trying to fucking get Roman Reigns, to shoot up the fucking ratings so his ass gets off the fucking hook, dude. All right? Come on, dude. All right? He's a puppeteer for who? TKO. TKO, right? Look, this is his strings, right? They have invisible strings that are fucking off screen here, right? And essentially that's what's happening, right? He's getting controlled, right? He's getting controlled. All right, Rosenberg, come on. You're done. Okay, Big E, feed your family, my friend. Feed your family, man. All right? Now, Jackie Redmond, come on. Come on. So manufactured, dude. Anyways, you guys already know what this is, right? The high-rise, live-in work wife, still an intern, John. Ow.
Are you gonna tell me when?
It's morphin' time. Got it. It's morphin' time. Jesus Christ, you did.
Oh, I thought I was supposed to hear it.
No, stupid.
I'm sorry.
Just say the fucking word. When?
Are you gonna tell me when?
Oh, yeah. Yeah!
When?
Saber-tooth tiger. Pterodactyl.
Yeah.
You gotta make the noise. What do I have to do?
Make the noise go. Yeah.
Oh, y'all?
Yeah.
It's morphin' time. It's morphin' time. Got it. It's morphin' time. Jesus Christ, you did.
Oh, I thought I was supposed to hear it.
No, stupid.
I'm sorry.
Just say the fucking word. When?
Are you gonna tell me when?
When?
When you're an aging excess male loser like me, how does it make you feel when some 24-year-old YouTuber humble brags and off the cuff mentions something about his house or his wife? How does that make you feel? Like, how out of touch can you be as a person with the average lived daily existence of other men in our generation to think that telling people who barely have any prospects for their future, who have tried their absolute hardest to get a girlfriend, to get a good job, to try and start their own business, to tell them about how you have a wife and a house? Like, no, I'm not gonna feel happy for you, bro. I'm gonna feel like you're rubbing it in my face. I watch YouTube to escape the misery of my daily existence, and if you remind me of it, I'm just gonna unsubscribe. I hope your wife divorces you and you never find another. When you're an aging excess male loser like me, how does it make you feel when some 24-year-old YouTuber humble brags and off the cuff mentions something about his house or his wife? How does that make you feel? Like, how out of touch can you be as a person with the average lived daily existence of other men in our generation to think that telling people who barely have any prospects for their future, who have tried their absolute hardest to get a girlfriend, to get a good job, to try and start their own business, to tell them about how you have a wife and a house? Like, no, I'm not gonna feel happy for you, bro. I'm 5'3.5", and I wish I was
Welcome back to the first episode of Masquerade Playground. In this one, I'm going to be making acetone peroxide. Now, acetone peroxide is a very unstable organic peroxide. And what that means is that it is very easily prone to decomposition. It is often used in radical oxidations along with being a primary explosive. So today, I'm going to show you how to make it. Let's begin. The materials you need are acetone, 12% hydrogen peroxide, and muriatic acid. The first thing I'm going to do is pour out 1,000 milliliters of chilled 12% hydrogen peroxide into a beaker. This is approximately 3.53 moles of hydrogen peroxide. The next thing I will do is pour out 250 milliliters of freezing acetone. This is approximately 3.37 moles of acetone. Lastly, I'm going to add 150 milliliters of 32% muriatic acid as a catalyst. This will speed up the reaction. As I let it sit, I noticed this really cool big swirl. I don't know why the liquid forms this, but unfortunately I have to destroy it in stirring. Lastly, I put plastic wrap over it and refrigerate. After 6 days, I get a nice cloud of acetone peroxide. As I scoop this, I've noticed the liquid in the solution has gone down a lot. I must have gotten a really good conversion to acetone peroxide. With this, you can do a couple things. You can dry it and dissolve it into a solution of toluene, acetone, or methanol to avoid dealing with the power's very explosive nature, while still maintaining its radicalizing properties. However, you can also just leave it wet and store in an airtight container, but be warned that this stuff degrades fast even with refrigeration. You may end up with sludge just next week, so use as needed. To know if I really got acetylene peroxide though, I'm going to light it up. Whoa! You see how high those flames got? It's like a flamethrower in a dish. Anyways, now we know for sure we have acetylene peroxide.
Welcome back, I'm That Chemist, and today we're going to be deciding which chemicals have the worst reputation. So let's get started. All of these molecules have reputations in their own right, but some of them are definitely worse than others. Think about thioacetone. A lot of chemists talk about thioacetone. It's so infamous because of its potent odor. Now, I personally have smelled thioacetone. I've accidentally made small amounts of it before, and it is as bad as it sounds. Did I have people several buildings over complaining about its smell? No, I did not. But it is one of the worst smells I've ever smelled. Now, there is a channel on YouTube that's made this before, and I'll include a link to that in the description. So thioacetone, does it have a bad reputation? Yep. Everybody talks about thioacetone in the chemistry community. It's pretty bad, but that being said, people will maybe consider working with it. So for that reason, I think we can put thioacetone into A tier. Now let's talk about fentanyl. So fentanyl is a drug, it's an opiate, and it's infamous for being much, much, much stronger than your typical opiates like heroin. Fentanyl is infamous, and it's got a bad reputation because it's often a contaminant in street drugs. And because of how potent it is, it could just be a couple grains of it in the drug, and that could be enough to give you an overdose. For this reason, people typically carry around an antidote called naloxone, just in case somebody overdoses. It's actually so potent that if somebody's having a severe enough overdose, it's possible that you could get an overdose just from skin contact. Now, this is extremely rare, but it's a possibility. So in first aid training, it's something that's often discussed. Now, that being said, because it's so potent, it can be really good for sedation, and so it's often used during surgery. Fentanyl is pretty awful in terms of having a bad reputation, though, so for that reason, we're going to put it right into S tier. Now, let's talk about carbon dioxide. This is another classic molecule. Everybody's familiar with carbon dioxide. Plays a role in climate change. It's also present in soda, and normally that would be a good thing that we're going to reward, but this time not so much. It's got a great reputation for being in soda. Now, one thing people don't always talk about is how increased CO2 levels when you're working in a small room, for instance, can lead to decreased mental performance. And so this is something that's understood for airplanes, for example. People often talk about likelihood of having a cold, etc. But you could also imagine that the impact on the pilot might be concerning. So CO2 levels in residential settings is something that I think we should probably look into more, especially if we're wanting to perform at our absolute peak. Good ventilation helps mitigate this, but it's not a problem that we've totally overcome. So CO2, it's got a bad reputation, but not as bad as some of the other ones on here. So for that reason, I think we can put it into B tier. If you're writing an angry comment about CO2 right now, I'm not going to read it, so don't bother. Another interesting one is thiomersal, which is a commonly used antiseptic and antifungal compound, and it's often used as a preservative in vaccines. And it's also worth noting that this is the mercury compound that causes concern amongst anti-vaxxers. This might have a bad reputation, but not as bad of a reputation as the anti-vaxxers have. So for that reason, I'm going to put it into F tier, because while it has a bad reputation amongst some communities, it's not too bad overall. But what is really bad overall is PFOA, perfluorooctanoic acid. This is an example of a PFAS, and it's used as a hydrophobic and a lipophobic surfactant. This could be used, for instance, for waterproofed coatings. It used to be used more frequently, although it now has the designation as a persistent organic pollutant and as a forever chemical. It turns out that it also has toxicity effects, which are of concern due to its historical widespread use. So this is everywhere. If you take like a blood sample from anyone, there's small amounts of it in there. It's a terrible chemical. It's been replaced with other alternatives that people say are better, but we'll see. Oftentimes, the levels of PFAS in samples are underreported due to limitations in existing methodologies, but there are better methods now for analyzing these, and hopefully we'll see widespread adoption of the better techniques moving forward. PFOA can go right into S tier. Adrenochrome. Adrenochrome is formed through the oxidation of adrenaline, and it's been claimed by conspiracy theorists that adrenochrome is harvested from the blood of children. That's quite an odd reputation. Other than being a metabolic byproduct of adrenaline, there's not too much else to say about it. Does it have a bad reputation? No, but the people who talk about it do. So again, we have another F tier chemical. Nicotine is another interesting one. So oftentimes people say that nicotine is a carcinogen, and I'm sure many of the viewers watching right now also believe this to be the case. However, nicotine itself isn't carcinogenic. However, frequently people assign carcinogenicity to nicotine, while the primary carcinogenic effect that you see is in tobacco. And this is because there's radioactive isotopes that concentrate in the tobacco plant, and when the tobacco plant is smoked, it also makes polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. So while nicotine gets a really bad rap for being a carcinogen, it's not carcinogenic, and the literature has been updated to reflect that. So nicotine doesn't get off scot-free because it is a habit-forming drug, especially in low-release formulations such as cigarettes and vapes. And the salt nicks specifically are concerning because there seems to be more compulsive use with people who vape salt nicks over the previous type of vape which utilized lower concentrations of nicotine. So nicotine still's got a bad reputation. I think we can put it into B tier because even if it has a bad reputation, a lot of people still use it. Now phosgene. Phosgene is terrifying. It's so awful that if anybody is working with it, everybody's terrified, and it doesn't have a super deadly smell, but it's so toxic. It's super, super toxic. It was also used as a chemical warfare agent previously, and so for that reason, easy S tier. Now here we have another chemical which gets a lot of attention, and that's CFC11, also known as Freon 11. Freon 11 is an ozone depleter and a potent greenhouse gas. It's also a really good refrigerant, and people used it as a refrigerant until they found out how bad it was for the environment. It's also a really good solvent, and it's occasionally used as a standard for fluorine NMR. But aside from some very specialized uses, it's been completely banned. So for that reason, we can put it into S tier. So I probably didn't make S tier big enough for this episode, and that's okay. We'll have to start being a little bit more harsh here. So let's look at chlorine trifluoride. Chlorine trifluoride is the chemical that gets the reputation of being able to burn sand, set sand on fire. It's one of the strongest oxidizers, and it's extremely dangerous to work with. There's actually a fluorine chemistry channel on YouTube called Fluorine is Great that I'll link to in the description. And this is the lab of Florian Krauss. I know we have several German viewers out there, and most of their content is in German. In fact, they even have a video where they use chlorine trifluoride on a gummy bear, and it just gets completely annihilated. The last thing I have to say about chlorine trifluoride is that it's used in the production of uranium hexafluoride, which is used for enriching uranium. So chlorine trifluoride can go right into A tier. Very scary chemical. Speaking of uranium hexafluoride, why don't we talk about that next? Uranium hexafluoride is a chemical that's used to enrich uranium, and the reason that they can do this is there's two different main isotopes of uranium that people look at, uranium-235 and 238, and they have different densities. And uranium-235 is the one that people convert into nuclear weapons, while 238 is depleted uranium. Because uranium hexafluoride is a volatile solid, if they get it hot enough, it makes it into a gas. And they use these crazy mega centrifuges that are able to enrich the uranium into uranium-235. So it's another one that gets a really bad reputation, and for that reason, we're going to put it right into S tier. Hopefully, if any of you listening have ever enriched uranium, it was only to make nuclear power plants and not nuclear weapons. Here we have picric acid. Picric acid is a really scary chemical because it's super explosive, and we've had stories on the channel before where people have isolated dry picric acid. Not something any of you want to be doing. So it's called picric acid, which if you're familiar with phenols, you might be surprised that this is an acid, but it actually has a pKa of 0.38, which is comparable to the pKa of trifluoroacetic acid. Previously, chemists used to isolate picrate salts of various complexes and organic chemicals even, although this is frowned upon because that is super nitrated. That thing just wants to detonate. So picric acid, especially anhydrous, has a really bad reputation. We'll put it into A tier. Now, monosodium glutamate. Monosodium glutamate is one of my favorite flavors. We have a whole taste receptor specifically for umami where we taste glutamate. It's one of the 21 basic amino acids, and it's a key staple of Asian cuisine. And it's also present in most processed foods, because guess what? It makes it better to eat stuff. In my opinion, MSG is a good secret ingredient to turn a meal that tastes like a 5 out of 10 into an instant 7 out of 10. And if you don't believe me, try cooking with it. It'll definitely work. You can overdo it though, and you don't necessarily want to overdo it, just because it'll ruin the taste of whatever meal. So, historically, some people have claimed to have sensitivities to MSG, but the origin of this claim stems from a paper in 1968 in the New England Journal of Medicine where they coined the term Chinese restaurant syndrome. And apparently this submission was a prank, but some people unironically believe that MSG is something they're allergic to still. Is it something you could be allergic to? Probably not. Does this stem from racism? Maybe. Is it delicious and does it make food taste way better? Heck yes, it is amazing. MSG can go right into F tier because it rocks. Crocodile. This is kind of something that you'd see in the news probably half a decade ago, give or take. And there was all these stories in the news of people shooting up this crazy drug and losing limbs. And this is an analog of morphine. It was previously used in managing pain in Russia and Switzerland, and it's also been used recreationally. Unfortunately, the illicit manufacture of crocodile was often poorly executed, and so when they formulated the drug, they still had a lot of the crude reaction mixture in there, including things such as iodine and phosphorus. And believe it or not, injecting elemental phosphorus into your body is not a good thing to do. So people started shooting up these mixtures, and it ended up destroying parts of their body. So this one has a really bad reputation. Probably it's overstated compared to how bad it actually is. And crocodile starts with a K sound, so we can put it right into C tier. Now, dimethylmercury. I think dimethylmercury has one of the worst reputations of chemicals on here because this has been drilled into me by everyone I've ever met in chemistry. It's an extremely toxic organomercury compound which allegedly has a sweet odor. And when you're taught about it, there's this case in 1997 where Karen Wetterhen, a professor at Dartmouth College, died following an exposure to a few drops of it. She got it on a glove. She was wearing gloves, wearing PPE, but it turns out that the stuff got through the gloves. And as a consequence of her exposure, 10 months later, she died. So dimethylmercury, super duper toxic. We could put dimethylmercury right into S tier. I'm going to move it over so that we have room for more stuff. Paraquat. This is one of the most widely used herbicides, but it's also lethal to humans and other animals, as this acts as an oxidant that interferes with electron transfer, which is an important thing that all living things do. It's also been linked to Parkinson's disease in farm workers. So despite this having a lot of toxicity, it still has widespread use. And we can put it right into A tier because it's got a bad reputation as well. We've been going in order. Let's spice things up a bit. Let's talk about DDT. So DDT is an insecticide which is controversial as a persistent organic pollutant, and it's toxic to many organisms throughout the environment. The issue is it accumulates and it sticks around, and even its metabolites tend to be a little bit toxic. It's so toxic that there's even a limerick about it. A mosquito was said to complain that a chemist had poisoned his brain. The cause of his sore was paradichloroDiphenyltrichloroethane. This is a limerick I always like to recite because it's very easy to remember and it's very amusing, so I hope you enjoyed that. DDT, another really bad one. I think we could probably put this one into A tier as well. White phosphorus. White phosphorus has a really bad reputation. For some reason, it's still allowed to be used as a chemical warfare agent, and it's frequently used to make smoke bombs, as when it reacts with oxygen in the air, it makes phosphorus pentoxide, which is a white smoky solid. It's also used in rounds which are incendiary, and so people can get burned with white phosphorus, but after they get burned, if any of the white phosphorus remains, it causes lots of toxic health effects, and that's because, again, elemental phosphorus, not good for your body, kind of like the crocodile case. So because white phosphorus is stable in water, sometimes chunks of this are stable, and someone will find it a long time later and get exposed to really toxic white phosphorus, which is not great. White phosphorus, right into S tier. Thalidomide. This is another classic that everybody taking organic chemistry is taught about at one point or another. So thalidomide is well known that it was historically used for preventing morning sickness in pregnant women in the late 50s and early 60s. However, its use led to numerous birth defects, which are now known to result from the interconversion of both enantiomers in vivo. They had thought that only one enantiomer was causing birth defects, but it turns out that even if you have the pure enantiomer that doesn't, inside the body it interconverts between enantiomers, and so you end up having toxic effects regardless. So thalidomide gets a really bad reputation. They're kind of trying to recover it and use it for some other applications, but it's got such a bad reputation that we'll have to see if it recovers. Thalidomide can probably go into B tier because it's going to mess up your babies. Diisopropyl ether. It's one of those things that sounds really innocent until you know what it does. It's a good polar solvent, but it forms peroxides more than most other chemicals. So this just reacts with oxygen in the air. It slowly forms extremely sensitive, extremely explosive diisopropyl ether peroxide crystals. And this chemical is even more sensitive than TATP. So this is a really dangerous one. This one gets a really bad reputation. And if you know of anybody who has a bottle of this, make sure they get it sorted out really quick, because if they don't sort it out, it will sort them out. Diisopropyl ether can go into B tier. Now, glyphosate. This is a broad spectrum herbicide and crop desiccant. People have genetically engineered crops to be resistant to it, such as in Roundup Ready soybean, which is made by the infamous Monsanto. Now, while you've heard bad things about this chemical before, the jury is actually out on whether or not it's a carcinogen. Different governing bodies say different things, and best case scenario, it seems to be murky. Oftentimes, court cases go to a jury because it's not a cut and dry case of exposure causing cancer, and so it's really hard to say whether or not it's a carcinogen. It's controversial, but it does have a bad reputation, and because it has a bad reputation, we'll put it into B tier. But let's say someone's working with glyphosate and they're not sure. If someone's working with uranium hexafluoride, they're sure. If someone's drinking dimethylmercury, you're sure. So you might think that this is too low of a placement, but man, dimethylmercury is way more terrifying. Agent Orange. Now, Agent Orange itself isn't too concerning, but it's what Agent Orange is contaminated with that is concerning. So this is a 50-50 mixture of this trichloro and this dichloro species here. And this is a herbicide and defoliant which is infamous for its use during the Vietnam War. Trace contamination by dioxins. And these dioxins caused health effects for millions of people who are exposed to it, as well as their children. So dioxins are awful. Agent Orange has a really bad reputation. This one's another S tier chemical. Hydrogen fluoride. Now, if you've watched Breaking Bad, you're probably assuming we're going to talk about dissolving bodies in bathtubs, but that's not what we're doing. HF can be lethal because it can attack calcium in the body, so this can cause heart failure. HF is awful, however, it's used quite widely in industry as it's the main way that fluorine is introduced into molecules. I have worked with a lot of HF pyridine, where it's 70% HF, 30% pyridine, and the scariest thing is when it fumes and you can feel the texture on your gloves change. If you're ever working with HF, make sure you have a tube of calcium gluconate around to rub on a wound in case you're concerned you get any on you. Now, the scariest thing about HF is that most people actually have access to it through rim cleaner or through other cleaning products that might be available in certain hardware stores. So HF, it has a pretty bad reputation, and I think it probably should go into S tier. Now, BPA. BPA is bisphenol A. It's a monomer in polycarbonates, and it's a weak xenoestrogen, so it somewhat slightly mimics the effect of estrogen in some contexts. So oftentimes you'll see products that say BPA free, and so here we have this carbon, 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 and they've just replaced this with something like a sulfone, which is just a sulfur with 2 oxygens, or they just have a CH2 group there, and they say, oh, it's BPA free. It's like, that is BS. That is basically BPA. It's still a bisphenol. So maybe it's not BPA, but it's BP something, and I'm going to guess that it has similar effects to BPA. Now, are those effects as bad as everyone makes them seem? Maybe not, but at least be honest about it, companies. It's got a bad reputation, but it's one of those things that people act like they care about, but I don't think they actually care about too much, so we'll put it into D tier. Now, let's talk about ammonium nitrate. So this one gets a bad rep because it's used in 80% of the explosives that we see in North America. It's cheap. For that reason, it kind of justifies its use. However, it's also used in fertilizers. Now, unless you're doing a lot of farming, you probably shouldn't be keeping big stockpiles of ammonium nitrate around, otherwise people might ask questions. And for the most part, as long as it's being safely handled, everything should be fine. There was a recent incident in Lebanon, which was not great, and so that probably gives ammonium nitrate a little bit worse of a reputation. For that reason, I think we could put this also into D tier. Now, sarin. Sarin is super, super toxic. It is an extremely deadly nerve agent, causing death through respiratory paralysis, and unless you get an antidote within 1 to 10 minutes, you're probably screwed. This is considered a weapon of mass destruction. This is the S-est of S tier. Nerve gases are really scary. Ivermectin. Ivermectin is something that has been popular in the news in recent years. It is an anti-parasitic drug that's used for treating several indications in people, including the treatment of parasitic worms and insects. The way it works is by targeting the glutamate-gated chloride channels, and it interferes with invertebrate nerve and muscle cells. Recently, people have spread some misinformation claiming that it could be used to treat the C disease. However, there is nothing to indicate that that actually works. So for that reason, we can put it into E tier. If you're taking it for a legitimate reason, totally fine. But the wound is still sore, so we should put it into E tier just to keep it safe. Mustard gas. Mustard gas is terrifying. When you have a mustard, it's usually like a nitrogen or a sulfur with a CH2CH2Cl. These things are super reactive because the sulfur has electrons that just pop off this chloride, and then that'll alkylate whatever it can. It's also lipophilic, so it can easily get absorbed, and that means it's able to get into the body and cause a lot of damage. So mustard gas has been used as a chemical weapon. It causes both acute and chronic toxicity. It's a chemical blistering agent, and it also causes mutations and cancer. Mustard gas goes right into S tier. So we have 2 left, hydroxychloroquine and ethidium bromide. Ethidium bromide is a chemical that's used for DNA intercalation as a fluorescent tag in DNA gel electrophoresis. It's known to be mutagenic, and people are concerned about how mutagenic it is. I'm not really sure personally if it's as bad as people claim it is, and I think more long-term studies are needed to truly understand the severity of its effects. There are less carcinogenic compounds that can be used, and the amounts that it's used in for staining gels is relatively low. So is it concerning? Yes. Have most of you ever heard of ethidium bromide? Probably not. We can put it into D tier. Hydroxychloroquine. So this is another one that's been talked about in recent years. It's an anti-malarial drug. As long as malaria in the region you're traveling to isn't resistant to chloroquine-type drugs, you can usually use this to prevent yourself from getting malaria. Malaria is no joke. Now, despite what people may claim, it doesn't seem to be effective at treating the C disease. So this one's actually not that bad. We can put it right into F tier. Hopefully this episode's been entertaining. If you have any interesting ideas, please leave a comment down below, and I hope you have a great day.
Hey guys, Harrison here, and today we're making a really pretty compound, and it is one of my favorite compounds. It is nickel hydrazine nitrate. Ah yes, future me here. I forgot to also mention, we're going to be making nickel hydrazine perchlorate also, which is the evil cousin of nickel hydrazine nitrate. So, very sensitive, and here's a photo of 5 grams of it that went off in a researcher's face. Yes, this poor grad student did not come out good. He tried to grind it in a mortar and pestle, and yeah, you can see the results. And well, the first thing we need to make is nickel nitrate, because as the name suggests, nickel hydrazine nitrate, so let's go ahead and make our nickel nitrate. So here I have a simple reflux setup, and to this I'm first going to add 2.6 grams of pure nickel metal. Then I'm going to add 6.5 grams of pure nitric acid. This isn't a molar excess. And then to this, we're also going to add about 25 milliliters of 12% hydrogen peroxide. Now the hydrogen peroxide's in there just to help oxidize our nickel, because with the nitric acid alone, it can be a little difficult to fully oxidize it. Oh, I also forgot to mention, turn the heat on, help it react. As you can see, the beautiful green hue from the nickel 2 ions in solution. And our nickel metal is reacting away. So while our nickel nitrate's brewing, what is going on in this reaction? What are we doing? So it's a very simple reaction. We're just going to combine hydrazine, as shown here, with our nickel nitrate, as shown here. And this will complex together, and as you can see here, we'll form these hydrazine ligands around our nickel ion. And then over here, you'll see our nitrate ion that is attracted to our nickel hydrazine complex, and bam, you have nickel hydrazine nitrate. So it's a really simple reaction and really easy. Sorry about all the noise, it's about to shit on me with a storm. There's a lot of lightning. Might have to call it a break. I think my lab's about to blow down right now. So, yeah, this video might take a little bit longer than I thought. Well, it looks like the rain ain't stopping anytime soon, so I'm just gonna proceed. So what I got here is just a test tube, and I'm going to fill this with our hydrazine solution. So first I'm going to add a small amount of hydrazine and then dilute it with distilled water. Now I'm going to add a small amount of dextrin into our hydrazine solution. And the reason for this is it will increase the bulk density of our final nickel hydrazine nitrate, which will improve its energetic properties. Okay, so now I'm going to add a thermometer to our solution, give that a little bit of a stir, and I'm going to turn on heating and heat the solution to about 65 degrees Celsius. Okay, our solution of hydrazine is now at 65 C. It's time to add our nickel nitrate solution that we made right here. Beautiful green color. So as soon as we add it, we see a beautiful purplish, pinkish compound. And there it is. There's our nickel hydrazine nitrate. Look at that beautiful precipitation. Oh, it's one of the most beautiful reactions right there. Oh, look at it form. Starts blue and then goes to beautiful purple. Okay, I have added my test tube into this beaker. And as you can see, there's excess nickel nitrate floating at the top, but that is fine. And now I'm just going to gravity filter our solution. So here's our final batch of nickel hydrazine nitrate. And as you can see, it is such a beautiful compound. I mean, no matter how many times I make this compound, I love the color of it. So now it's time to go ahead and put this in the dehydrator. Okay, into the dehydrator she goes. So here's our final yield of nickel hydrazine nitrate, and it came out to about 5.2 grams, which is pretty good. Now, most ordinary primaries, you would never dare make a 5-gram batch. It's a very fine powder, so this is exactly what we want. So let's go ahead and give this some tests to show you guys just how good of a primary nickel hydrazine nitrate is. So let's give it the old classic friction test. And I am pressing down hard and nothing. That is just impressive, to say the least. Starting to rub off the paint. Now with the hammer hit test, it's probably going to detonate because it is sensitive under a pretty good shock. There it goes, it just blew the paint off. So as you can see, it took quite a big hammer hit for it to go off, but it did blow that paint right off. Let's go ahead and do another small one. gonna try to go ahead and just give it one good whack to set it off instantly. Let's flatten it. Okay. Wow, that was powerful, and I'm pretty sure I just woke up the neighbors. Now let's give it the flame test. As you can see, it does burn very quickly, but it does not detonate on its own. So there was nickel hydrazine nitrate, great compound, and it's really pretty. Let's go ahead and make nickel hydrazine perchlorate, which is a lot more violent than nickel hydrazine nitrate. It is the exact opposite of a great primary. So to make our nickel hydrazine perchlorate, we're first going to make nickel perchlorate. So I'm going to start off by adding a small amount of nickel nitrate into a beaker. I'm now going to add sodium carbonate to precipitate nickel carbonate. Okay, as you can see, our nickel carbonate has fully precipitated, so let's go ahead and gravity filter this. Okay, now that our nickel carbonate is pretty well filtered, it's time to go ahead and move it to another beaker. Moved a small amount to this smaller beaker, and now I'm going to add 70% perchloric acid to create our nickel perchlorate. Okay, so I boiled down our nickel perchlorate solution a little bit, so now we have a concentrated solution of nickel perchlorate. Now I'm going to be performing this reaction in this little plastic beaker, and that is because just in case it detonates, I don't have glass shrapnel flying everywhere. So now I'm going to add some diluted hydrazine solution to our small plastic beaker. Now we are going to add our solution of nickel perchlorate. And we should see a bluish complex form. Oh, looks like I see it forming there. Okay. That would be our nickel hydrazine perchlorate. Yep, there is a precipitate in there. I'll go ahead and let it form. I'm going to gently stir this. Okay, it looks like we're forming some, almost looks like nickel hydrazine nitrate, but by the literature it's supposed to be blue. So that's a little strange there. Maybe our perchloric acid had some nitric acid still in it. That is a possibility. So that could have formed nickel nitrate a bit. Well, this is definitely nickel hydrazine perchlorate, because watch what happens when I put just this little amount on this hot plate from the stir rod. Oh, you can hear it detonating there on the thing. That is crazy. Oh my god, that is violent. Nickel hydrazine nitrate nowhere near behaves like this. Okay, now that we know we have our nickel hydrazine perchlorate, it's time to filter our solution. I still don't know what that blue complex is. No idea. Because it looks like the blue complex is soluble. Okay, so I filtered our nickel hydrazine perchlorate, and honestly, I'm a little too scared to fully dry it. So here I have a little bit of a wet chunk, and I'm going to go ahead and put it on the hot plate. Give it a little light and see what happens. Wow. That is powerful. Holy crap, that is powerful. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit more on here, and I'm going to back the fuck up. So powerful, that was like nothing either. Okay, I have a small amount of it in some aluminum foil, and let's apply some heat to it. Holy crap. Okay. That definitely woke up the neighbors. So I'll end the video there. Well, I'll give you guys a final send-off of me burning the rest of it. There it all goes. So it does deflagrate in open air sometimes. If you heat shock it, it definitely detonates in open air. Well, that wraps it up for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed. My eardrum certainly didn't enjoy it so much. See ya. Welcome back, everyone, and today we're going to turn aspirin into this insane weight loss drug, 2,4-dinitrophenol. This compound goes by the more common name DNP, and sometimes you can find this in supplements marketed towards weight loss, even though it's in a very heavy legal gray area, and some countries have straight up outright banned it. And they were starting to ban this stuff in the 1930s. Okay, if they were banning things in the 1930s, you know it's bad, okay? They had lead in paint. They had lead in gas. Leaded paint was not banned until the 1970s. So if this stuff was banned in the 1930s, it's pretty bad. And now the reason why it's so dangerous is just because it is so effective at doing its job. And this stuff right here causes dose-dependent mitochondrial uncoupling. That's a lot of fancy words, but in essence what this does is this causes ATP to turn into just heat. So ATP is what your body uses as energy. And well, this pretty much causes that ATP to become super inefficient, and it mostly just gets wasted into heat. The best analogy I can give to this is take your car and drop its efficiency down, right? Hitch a trailer onto it. You're gonna be consuming a lot more fuel for the same mileage. And this is what this exactly does. So your body has a base metabolic rate, which consumes calories. So what happens is this makes that process super inefficient. And when that is super inefficient, your body starts burning a lot more energy to compensate. So it's just like your car burning more gas to compensate for the weight it's carrying. And that's what this stuff does. But what makes it so dangerous is that your body is burning so much energy and producing so much heat, you can die from hyperthermia. You will overheat and die. But it's really good at causing weight loss because you are burning a lot of calories as your body is trying to keep up with just its base metabolic rate. It's like exercising without doing the exercise. But perhaps a more efficient and better weight loss drug is just to have you consume less calories in the first place. So some kind of drug that would lower your hunger levels. Oh yeah, did I also tell you that this stuff is explosive too? It is 2,4-dinitrophenol. It's a pretty good nitrated compound, and in and of itself, it is technically classified as an explosive. So yeah, there's that too. Anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the synthesis and make some of this from aspirin. To make our extreme weight loss drug from aspirin, well first we're going to need aspirin. And here I have a lot of aspirin. This is 325 milligram tablets, and there's 500 in each of these bottles. Together, this is 325 grams of aspirin, which comes out to about 3/4 of a pound, roughly. So this is quite a bit of aspirin. But this isn't just fully aspirin. In these bottles here, our inactive ingredients contains cornstarch, hypomellulose, what I have no clue what that is, some kind of binder I'm gonna guess. Polyethylene glycol and propylene glycol. So most of these are going to be binders, is what I'm guessing most of that is. But for our synthesis, we don't want all these other binding agents, we just want the aspirin. So we can dissolve the aspirin out using a solvent such as 91% isopropyl alcohol. Though most of this stuff should not dissolve in the isopropyl alcohol, propylene glycol will be soluble in our alcohol, but the way we'll crystallize it, it's not a big deal. For our synthesis, we get to do the most satisfying part here. That's to open the bottles, puncture the seals, take out this piece of cotton, which just keeps it from shaking around inside there. And let's go ahead and add this all to our beaker here. Let's add another round in here. That right there is just an insane amount of aspirin. That is insane, but it is so satisfying. Well, I wish I could just eat them because they just... Oh, that's some ASMR right there. Okay, now that we got the ASMR out of the way, let's go ahead and add a bunch of our 91% isopropyl alcohol. And this should start dissolving out all of our aspirin. Probably gonna need more than that, but for now, let's go ahead and turn on strong heating and get that dissolving up. Okay, so it's pretty much reached its point of saturation. As you can see, I can tell you that everything's not fully dissolved. Well, all the aspirin's not fully dissolved, because we still have quite a bit of stuff at the bottom. And it's a little bit more stuff than we should have. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a vacuum filtration, and then we'll dissolve up the residuals even more. But you can see our aspirin already caking on our fork here as it cools off. You may be able to see I have been struggling, mainly because this is precipitating in the funnel because the funnel is too cool, right? So that precipitates in there and clogs it. So I've moved it to 1,000 milliliter, added more solvent to hopefully dissolve all of it. Anyway, I'm going to refilter this and heat this with a blowtorch, like preheat it, so hopefully that'll work. This is insanity. Reheating my funnel here. This took way longer than expected. I cleaned up the mess, but it's always the simple things that go the longest. I'm like, hey, this is so simple. A simple solvent extraction. This is going to
The Royal Rumble 2026 Aftermath Show, right here on the Amplified channel. You know, I love doing these shows more than the reviews themselves, because it gives BC a chance to let the show digest. Try to comprehend the convoluted mess we all witnessed, and gauge the response from the pro wrestling world. And this was one of those shows yet again, where the wrestling world simultaneously and unanimously declared was a forgettable money grab. WWE collected over $100 million for this show and sold all of their fans on the premise of this Royal Rumble being one of the most memorable of all time. The reality? We're already trying to forget it. They sold us on the statement that it would be, quote, epic. The reality? We've all had morning shits that were more epic than this filler facade. They sold us on the hype of, quote, many big surprises. The reality? A Royce, another Bella, and a dude dressed as an iguana. An event lacking of substance and a void to even care. To the point where, yet again, the Chief Content Officer, Paul Hunter Hearst Helmsley Levesque McMahon, the doofus son-in-law, Sensei Simpleton Schnoz McGee, the cerebral shithead, was once again booed out of the venue. For the first time in his many trips to Saudi, he was heckled and berated during the event post-show, where fans were chanting, Y2J. Fans were chanting AEW. Baldy. You fucked up. You fucked up. And even We Want Vince was chanted at the doofus son-in-law. He was then booed out of the stadium. It is not only the US anymore. The world has become fed up with the astonishing incompetence and destructive negligence of the doofus son-in-law. And you know it has hit rock bottom when fans are chanting for Vince McMahon. Because we had thought anybody would be better than VKM's last 10 years. But the son-in-law comes in, says, "Hold my coffee," and proceeds to inject a lethal dose of poison into the veins of World Wrestling Entertainment. He has made these shows all about himself. From headlining Hall of Fames to covers of video games, starring in all of the commercials and voicing all of the narration packages, the talk shows, the podcasts, it's non-stop Hunter Hearst Helmsley. From the opening signature, Then, Now, Together, Forever, to the end credits, and everything in between. With Austin, Rock, Taker, Michael, Cena all out of the way, he gets to play the face of WWE now. But coming off a creative collapse in 2025, fans started to do the one thing Paul told us never to do. They started questioning things. Why is the booking so bad? Why is the talent being put in reckless situations? Why do the shows lack direction, energy, purpose? Where's the continuity, the consistency, storylines, larger than life characters? What is happening with this company? Why is WWE so bad right now? Paul didn't like that, so Paul told us to f*** off. He said we're not real fans if we are not happy with his product. And the result of this absurd ignorance was a massive percentage of fans did just that. They decided to f*** off, as evidenced by the ratings. Raw struggling to maintain 2 million globally now, and SmackDown can sadly no longer attract 1 million viewers. And another mass amount of fans decided to say, no, you do not get to decide who is and isn't a fan of something we all grew up watching and loving. So we're not only going to keep watching, but we're going to start holding your ass accountable for giving us the best possible shows imaginable. No longer are even decent or even good shows acceptable. Your talent, your fans deserve the best show you can distribute. And if you're not giving us your best in 2026, the reaction you got Saturday in Saudi post-Rumble is going to amplify. This is fans around the globe now telling you, Paul, to f*** off. We're telling you, you're not a real promoter. You're not a real booker. You're not a creative human. You slept your way to the top, now see yourself back to the bottom. It is WrestleMania season, and we're already thinking, here we go again. A repeat of 2025's abysmal Mania season, but somehow we have this feeling it's gonna be even worse. The Royal Rumble was promoted like a garage band performing at a flea market. Maybe you saw a poster or two on a light pole. Most of my audience told me all week, BC, I forgot or didn't even know that the Rumble was this weekend, let alone on a Saturday afternoon. And then the event itself completely bombs. Fans calling it one of the worst Rumbles in history. Fans not happy and frustrated with the doofus. You see, this is no longer once in a blue moon. This is now a trend. This has become the new normal. No build, no interest, no care. Show goes live, it sucks. Fans voice their displeasure. The doofus grins, changes nothing, and we repeat the process. This is unacceptable. We need someone who is competent and a real leader to be the captain of this ship, because this doofus is hitting every iceberg he tries to navigate around. It's the first week on the road to WrestleMania, and we already want to get off this road. Another Mania season and another Mania like last year should be unacceptable to you. And if you're not sure why everybody is being so hard on the E and the doofus, you need to raise your bar, raise your standards, want better for yourself, demand better for yourself. If my Yankees lose 100 games this season, my fellow Yankees will be voicing that displeasure loudly to the organization so that management knows changes need to be made. it should be no different for WWE. Because you see, Doofus, that is what being a fan is. You look at this Royal Rumble, and you have to ask why so many were disappointed, unfulfilled, not happy. They were promised lots of surprises. They got Brie, Keys, and Iguana. Instead of a Y2J, they got a Gunther, who they just saw an hour beforehand. We missed key moments, like Beast Lesnar getting eliminated because Jay Yeaterman's dumbass wanted to run it back, and production thought that was more important. Instead of watching LA Knight finally getting some shine on a big stage, he was once again thrown to the wayside. The dude was one of, if not the loudest pop of the night, and couldn't even make the Final Four. And the son-in-law can't be bothered to care, because he's too busy trying to get Maxi Pad Dupree over. In what world is it okay that Maxi Pad Dupree has gotten and is getting more opportunities than LA Knight? LA Knight has been one of the most over guys in the company for the last 3 years, and organically. And he can't even get a piece of the rocket. Meanwhile, Maxi Pad wrestles like a retarded llama with epilepsy and gets the entire rocket strapped on her. This girl running to the ring this past Saturday at the Royal Rumble. Running to the ring like she's Forrest Gump. Who runs like that? She's unorthodox. She's not an athlete. She's obviously not a pro wrestler. But nobody wants to be honest with her backstage. And so for an entire year, we've had to play along and hold her hand through the process while she wrestles with her training wheels on. While we all shout, "You're getting better, Maxine!" No, she's not. They're just giving her more time to rehearse, and that's not even working. And that's why you had that cringe moment at the Royal Rumble where she was shocked that Natty was the next entrant. There was just one problem, of course. Natty's music hadn't even hit yet. So Maxi Pad knows that Natty is next, but the whole rest of that stadium, the whole world has no clue. Her name didn't come up on the Tron yet. Natty's music didn't play yet. Oh yeah. You see, Maxi Pad was so rehearsed, that's all she's thinking about. She's so rehearsed, she's not even thinking about the fans or the flow. It's all so forced. These were the moments that filled these Rumble matches. Damian Priest choke slamming a stuffed iguana. Jay Yeaterman is dancing during an actual Rumble match. Shouldn't be too shocked these days. We saw Yeaterman dancing during a match called War Games. Could you imagine being in a war? And you say time out so you can dance? We're all of a sudden supposed to believe that Lash Legend is a monster. Gunther and Roman is your final two. All of these things add up. All of these things collectively left fans underwhelmed. They were promised epic, and it wasn't even close. They were promised lots of big surprises. No, there was none. They were promised memorable. They got forgettable. That's why this event is getting bashed, and that's why the doofus son-in-law was once again booed out of another stadium. Because we had enough of this crap in 2025, and we're not accepting it in 2026. We want a better product. We demand a better product. Deliver or get out. Styles and Gunther was good. Styles not quitting like Jonathan Cena but passing out. Now that is cinema. Drew and Sammy. Blah, I get it. But that is how Drew needs to be booked. Dominant. Drew is a beast. Book him as such. But damn, the two Rumble matches were as if the company couldn't care less about them. And when you think of the lack of build or even mention of this event, I guess that was the only outcome. They cashed in on $125 million. They cashed in on a $125 million paycheck for this event. So Helmsley got to sit back and tell the fans to fuck off. Because they already got paid. But you're starting to see more and more fans are no longer accepting Helmsley's bullshit. Buckle up. The road to this year's WrestleMania is going to get a whole lot more bumpy. Until next time, and there will be that next time, BC saying check you, the unit. Salute.
Welcome back, I'm That Chemist, and today we're going to be ranking 50 toxic gases. So with 50 gases to rank, we're going to have to go through them relatively quickly, so I apologize if you don't get as much detail as you would have liked. For ranking these compounds, we have to consider whether or not they're actually a gas. Some of these are called gases, but that doesn't really count as a gas, so we're going to be a little bit harsher if they aren't actually a gas. Additionally, they have to be somewhat common. They have to be something that everybody knows about, maybe not everybody works with, but a lot of people know about them. Additionally, I'm going to be looking at what the NFPA rating for each of these is to help us really decide whether or not they're that toxic. Let's get started. Formaldehyde is a surprising one. You might not know this, but formaldehyde actually boils at a really low temperature, something like minus 20 degrees Celsius. So formaldehyde is used quite routinely, although it is really toxic. It can be potentially a carcinogen, and it has an NFPA rating of 3. So because it has an NFPA rating of 3, we can't be too harsh on it. I think we're going to have to put it into C tier. Now the next one is mustard gas. So mustard gas here, bis-chloroethyl sulfide. This is known as mustard gas. This is one of the mustards. A mustard generally just has something that can get alkylated. Usually this is a 2-carbon chloride, so a nitrogen mustard would be the same thing but with a nitrogen and an additional chloroethyl group. Now in the case of this, it's actually just a liquid, but it can be dispersed into a vapor. This is a chemical weapon and it causes both acute and long-term issues, so we have to be pretty harsh on it. It has an NFPA rating of 4, but because it's not a gas, we're going to put it in B tier. I apologize if that upsets you. Now the next one is nitrogen monoxide. Nitrogen monoxide, also known as nitric oxide, is a relatively toxic compound with an NFPA rating of 3. It's generally formed when you combust stuff, and one of the reasons why we have catalytic converters is to convert NO2 and NO into nitrogen and oxygen respectively. So this is a little bit toxic, but compared to the other ones, it's not too bad. So we're going to put it into D tier. Now, that being said, all of these are really toxic and you shouldn't breathe in any of these. I'm not claiming that they're safe for you to breathe in, so saying an F tier could still F you up, so do not breathe in any of these. I'm going to put this one into F tier because it's not that bad. Now, diborane. Diborane is another pretty terrifying one. Diborane has an NFPA rating of 4. It actually has a rating of 444. It's super bad in every way. It's super flammable, it's super unstable, and it's super toxic. So it's not great. I think because it has a 444, we're going to probably need to put it close to S tier, but we'll put it in A tier just because there's some really nasty compounds here. Now the next one is osmium tetroxide. Osmium tetroxide is a relatively common reagent. People are afraid to work with it because it's kind of toxic. In the olden days, chemists were more comfortable working with it even outside of a fume hood, but nowadays it's got more of a bad rap. It's only got an NFPA rating of 3 though, so I think we can put osmium tetroxide into E tier. We might change that later when we come back to it. Now hydrogen cyanide, it's a classic super toxic chemical. It's got an NFPA health rating of 4. It's pretty toxic. I mean, like, cyanide has the reputation of being one of the most common poisons, and I mean nature makes it too. Now that being said, it's pretty bad. I think we can put it in A tier. There's some other ones that are a lot worse. You can smell hydrogen cyanide and escape with your life, so I think you can tolerate it. One other thing I'm going to start doing is mentioning whether or not I've worked with these. I've worked with borane before as like an adduct for some hydroboration stuff. I've also unintentionally made hydrogen cyanide in the lab before, and I've also worked with formaldehyde a couple times. Although I haven't worked with mustard or osmium tetroxide, nor have I worked with nitrogen monoxide. Actually, I have worked with nitrogen monoxide on one occasion. Now, the next one we're going to look at is hydrogen sulfide. Hydrogen sulfide is extremely toxic. Hydrogen sulfide has an NFPA rating of 4, and this is one that a lot of people can get exposed to. So one example would be if you're on a farm and you keep all of your animals' waste in one area, that can actually build up lethal amounts of hydrogen sulfide, and there's definitely instances where farmers have died as a consequence of exposure to it. However, that being said, it plays a role in the body. You can also smell it occasionally if you're cooking food that makes hydrogen sulfide in small amounts, so you can smell it and get away with your life. If you can smell it and get away with your life, it can't go into S tier. The next one is tellurium hexafluoride. Tellurium hexafluoride has an NFPA rating of 3, at least in one MSDS sheet that I've found. It's relatively toxic. It is a gas. Because it's a little bit more obscure, I think we can be a little bit harsher on it, and we can put it into D tier. Carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide poisoning is a thing that definitely exists. Now, we can't usually smell it, although dogs are sensitive to it, so dogs can smell carbon monoxide. This is a good opportunity to remind everybody that you should go check your carbon monoxide and smoke detector, and if you think you don't need to do it, I'm going to intentionally just keep talking about how much you should do it. And you can fast forward this part of the video, but you're doing so at your own risk. This is definitely a reminder. You need to go and check your carbon monoxide and smoke detectors because you never know what's going to happen, right? Okay, I think I've gone on long enough about this. If you haven't checked your smoke detector and your carbon monoxide detector at this point, you're sealing your own fate. Now, carbon monoxide has an NFPA rating of 3, so it's not too bad. It also has roles in the body in small amounts. Trace amounts of carbon monoxide are present in the body. So it's bad, but it's not that bad. So I think we can put it into C tier, which makes sense because it starts with a C. Now, silane. Silane is an interesting gas. A lot of people who make magnesium silicate specifically do so to make silane. Now, I've never smelled silane gas. It only has a health rating of 2. This can go straight to F tier. Not even that bad. Now, the next one is arsine. So arsine gas is relatively toxic. Actually, it's quite toxic. It has an NFPA rating of 4. I've never worked with arsine gas, and it just generally looks like a really terrible compound. Initially, arsine was proposed as a chemical warfare agent, and apparently it's also almost odorless, so it could be pretty bad. Since arsine didn't make the cutoff as a chemical weapon, and it starts with an A, we're going to put it into A tier. Now, ethylene oxide. Ethylene oxide is a gas. I didn't actually realize how toxic this was, but there is a video from the US Chemical Safety Board talking specifically about ethylene oxide contamination incidents where I believe some workers were actually killed. It has an NFPA rating of 3, so it isn't too bad. It's used to sterilize stuff that people end up being able to use, but the removal of any excess ethylene oxide is necessary before making the product available to consumers. So we can put this into D tier. Now, the next one is germane. So germanium doesn't often get a lot of attention in chemistry, but germane is a really